Hello again, college football fans. Coming at you with your Week 8 SEC Power Rankings. Just got through agonizing over this list, and I think I've done a wonderful job for you once again. Let me know in the comments section how you feel about it, all 5 of you. If we're lucky. If we're lucky, we've got 5 viewers. Coming in at number 14, they've had a firm grasp of this position all year long, and I don't see that not continuing. Vanderbilt is just built for the bottom spot. They're built for being the worst of the SEC, and they do it well. They do it better than any other SEC team, being the bottom feeder and the cellar dweller, as we like to call them, cheekishly sometimes. Missouri, number 13, they didn't do anything this week to make me think that they're not every bit as bad as Vandy. They're at least in the neighborhood of Vandy. They don't live in the basement apartment yet, but they have definitely been kicked out of the upstairs room that they had. If they ever had I mean, I remember Alabama playing them in the SEC championship game a few years ago. So they at least they've done more than South Carolina has in less time in the SEC East. So you have to hand it to them for at least that. I mean, they're not South Carolina. But South Carolina's ahead of them in our list because South Carolina managed to pick up a conference win, which, Vandy was probably the only place they were going to be able to get that one. So it was good that they were able to eke that one out in the end. I thought that they'd do it more easily, but it is what it is. And 14, 13, and 12, like I said last week, it's going to be either this exact combination or different, musical chairs among these 3 teams. But I don't imagine any of them getting out of this this last little collection of garbage, silt. I don't know, whatever winds up at the bottom of the creek. Silt, I suppose. Coming in at number 11, Mississippi State. It's Mike Leach. It's Mike Leach world at Mississippi State. They're not going to run the ball. They're not going to. He's not going to change his protections, even though Will Anderson is sacking his quarterback every play. That's just Mike Leach, and you live or you die with that kind of an attitude and that kind of approach. And right now, Mississippi State is dying, and we may be learning a lesson about Mike Leach. It might be he might have made enough money, and now this is just him going through the motions, but he better, this is the SEC, and I'm not saying he's on any sort of hot seat yet, but he will be next year if he's in the same position. If his team's in the same position this time next year, he will be on a hot seat. Not saying that, even if he does as bad as he's done this year, next year he'll be fired, but conversations about him being fired will have begun. I can guarantee you that. Not saying that they have yet, but he better get things going sooner rather than later down there in Stark Vegas. Number 10 is the disappointment of the year, the team that fell the furthest from last week's power rankings, and that is the Florida Gators. And I heard Feinbaum talking about how Mullen was being criticized over his handling of the quarterback situation. Who gives a rat crap about the handling of the quarterback situation when you see what that defensive line especially was doing last week? I mean, quarterback Schmorterback figure out a way to stop the conference's worst rushing attack from breaking their school's record. Good Lord in heaven. It's panic mode, shields up, red team go time in Florida and Gainesville. And I don't know if Mullen's going to be able to salvage much out of this season or not. The Georgia game still looms. I haven't decided if Florida's the kind of team that could pull a weird one. Obviously, they don't match up well with LSU for whatever reason, because last year they shouldn't have lost to them either in the infamous shoe throwing incident. But it's a mystery to me why Florida is looking as terrible as they are. But Mullen is one of those guys. He's got a strong personality, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Florida have a dramatic turnaround at some point. But they're going to have to if they want to have any fond memories of the 2021 football season moving forward in their lives. Number 9, LSU. I got to hand it to the big dumb gorilla. I wonder if the decision had already been made and told to Ed Orgeron earlier in the week, because that team played like a team that had sort of a weight off of its shoulders. And I see this happen a lot of times. If the school will just go ahead and make the announcement, make it official, say, you can coach the rest of this season, but we're going to part ways after this. A lot of times you see teams that were in total doldrums, not turn around, but, play with a little bit more spirit, a little bit more life than they did before, because that pressure of all those rumors and everything has to weigh on the whole is the whole program down there. And so you might see LSU playing with a little bit more life. I wouldn't expect too many great things. I mean, they're not going to pull off any great upsets or anything like that. Florida's probably as good as they can hope for in the upset department this season. But, Ed Orgeron is on his way out, and it's going to be a new day at LSU. And my only hope is that they fumble it and bumble it, because as we've seen, LSU is a fertile talent area, and if you get the right coach in there, they can become a real mean, nasty team that you don't want to have to deal with. And so obviously that's going to be an interesting coaching search that every eye is going to be on in the nation. And moving on to number 8, I got Arkansas, who, it seems like they might have run out of a little bit of steam, but they have played the most emotional slate of games. I mean, it seems like every game for Arkansas is a big, huge game for them, and I think that you can definitely see that has taken a bit of a toll on them, and they're going to move into some less high-profile games. And obviously, now that they have 3 losses, there's not going to be as much attention on them. So maybe they will be able to regroup and end on a strong note. And I know Sam Pittman, for all the good things that he's done, if he just strings together, a big old losing streak to end the season, pretty much everything he's done will be negated going into his 3rd season. So I know he and it seems to me like he's got the ship in the right direction for sure over there. So I would be surprised if Arkansas is not able to turn things around here in the last stretch of the season and do a few good things to make that fan base feel even better going into the offseason than they already would have. Tennessee, number 7, they're the good surprise to me in the conference. Them and the team just ahead of them are the big surprise teams as far as playing above expectations. And the incident with the fans and all that kind of stuff, that will blow over. People always like to make big deals out of those sort of things, like it's a sign that the culture in Knoxville is toxic and, you might as well just shut down the whole university. That's not going to happen. And Heupel is doing a great job, and they almost beat a real good Ole Miss team, and that would have been by far the biggest win that program's seen since, I guess, Butch fell on his knees against Georgia in that Hail Mary game there several years back. Number 6, you got the Auburn Tigers, which like I said, Alabama's rivals are competing for the surprise best performance, and I figure Heupel and Harsin will both be in the discussion for SEC Coach of the Year. Huge win on the road, and the way they won was huge. Going in there and just taking care of business. It wasn't stressful. It wasn't a classic football game. It seems like every big game for Auburn turns out to be like an instant SEC classic that you'll wind up watching on the SEC network 10 years down the road. But this was not that. This was not a classic game. It was not a stressful game. This was a team that went out and showed the other team that they were just that much better and got a very, very strong victory. And Auburn is definitely got a bullet. They're number 6 with a bullet right now. And I said a couple weeks earlier that, Auburn probably wouldn't be able to get much higher than 5 or 6 on these power rankings, but that they could go much lower. Well, my attitude is slowly being changed about them, but obviously there's still a lot more football to be played, a lot more for Auburn too. They've still got a lot of tough games ahead. including 3 teams that are ahead of them on this list, and that starts with Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M, who just look, the whole perception about them has changed after they beat Alabama, hasn't it? I mean, they seemed like a team that had lost their starting quarterback and obviously had nothing else in that room, and they definitely changed everybody's perception against Alabama, and it continued. That looked like a completely different team against Missouri. When you think about the team that was playing against Colorado and lost to Arkansas and lost to Mississippi State, think about that team playing against Missouri. That was a different team. That's a totally different team. And so Texas A&M could completely win out. And like I said in the review video last, if Texas A&M wins out, then people will look at that loss years from now with not nearly as skeptical an eye as it was given a couple of weeks ago. And the whole unranked thing, I think we're over that now. I mean, there are unranked teams and then there are unranked teams. I mean, Louisiana Monroe in 2007 versus Texas A&M in 2021 are not exactly apples to apples comparisons. Number 4, Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is just tearing it up. I debated whether or not to flip-flop Ole Miss with Kentucky, but I figure Kentucky's loss, I didn't want to punish Kentucky for losing more recently than Ole Miss lost. I mean, both of their losses were two, juggernauts in the SEC. So, and we'll just see as the season goes along. If I had to guess, I would predict that Ole Miss will have a stronger finish than Kentucky. But I'm not Kreskin, so we're going to have to just let everything play out. And obviously, number 2 and number 1, it's no big mystery. Number 2, Alabama. Are they back to being elite? Well, I still don't think that Alabama has an elite offense just yet. But the good news is their quarterback is still improving and still new to his position. So by the time we need them to be elite, which is going to be another few weeks from now, hopefully they will be, especially if they can win out and get to Georgia. Obviously they will have to improve a lot if they want to pull that off. But then we get to number 1, Georgia, and they are getting enough praise from everybody else that I don't feel too bad about being a lone voice of criticism. And it is genuine criticism. It's not just an Alabama fan feeling threatened or anything. I mean, why would we feel threatened even by Georgia? I mean, even if Georgia manages to finish this season off the way they started it and they look like an all-timer of a team, we're still Alabama and they're still Georgia. They'll have to do that a few more times before they'll really make us feel insecure as a fan base regarding them. I mean, heavens to Betsy. But yeah, I mean, Stetson Bennett is great and good against the Kentuckys of the world, but he ain't gonna cut it. I'm saying it here and now, and Kirby Smart knows that. That's why he's being so careful with JT Daniels, because Kirby Smart knows that he's gonna need JT Daniels, and Kirby Smart also knows that he doesn't need him yet, and probably won't need him for the rest of their regular season, unless Dan Mullen in Florida can figure out something in an emergency situation over there. Dan Mullen's going to have to break the glass if they want to pull off an epic upset. And I just don't think, judging by what I saw that defensive line do and the whole defense of theirs, I don't think they can do it, even though, something fishy was going on in that LSU game. And there's just a fishy vibe in that whole series, that LSU-Florida series. But I just got a weird feeling about that whole Florida team coming out of that. But Georgia's number 1, obviously, and they look great. Their defense looks great. Their offensive line looks amazing. And if they can get JT Daniels back, and if he is everything that he's supposed to be, and if they can get a couple of their elite, high-end, real fast, over-the-top receiver guys, then yeah, they'll have enough. But, that's a lot of ifs. That is a lot of ifs on the offensive side of the football. And also, their running game is not anything to write home about. I mean, I hear a lot about their running game as though it's, Wisconsin or old school, like Navy or something like that. I haven't seen a high-end elite rushing attack. They've got, to me, 4 serviceable backs, no great ones. Obviously, Alabama's was in a similar situation, but I think B-Rob's probably better than anything I've seen Georgia has back there, and I'm obviously not the biggest B-Rob fan in the world, but anyway, that's going to be your SEC power rankings, and we'll have the predictions for the Week 8 coming up very soon, hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully I'll have a lot more than that this week as we head into the final stretch of this season, and the shadows are getting longer, and we are getting excited for big-time college football. Thank you very much.